The scale of the unrest that we have been seeing in the past few weeks in Iran has not been witnessed in the last 45 years. The turmoil emerged as the most serious challenge to the clerical establishment since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. What started as demonstrations against Iran's economic crisis, within days assumed a different tone and tenor. Protests spread across all Iranian provinces and evolved into the largest anti-government agitation in many years. Thousands of protesters are reported to have died. Thousands are reported detained or arrested by Iranian authorities. Some are reported to have been sentenced to death. The Iranian regime led funeral processions for security personnel who reportedly died in pitched battles with protesters. So deaths are being reported on both sides of the divide in Iran. While Iran saw turmoil, its ripple effect was being felt across West Asia and beyond. US President Donald Trump threatened very strong action if Iran goes ahead with executions of protesters arrested and sentenced over the last few days. Iran, on the other hand, vowed revenge if US attacks. So what exactly is happening in Iran? Are tensions dialing down, or is there a risk of escalation? Let's connect the dots. Let's go back to how it all started. Protests erupted on December 28, 2025 in cities like Tehran, Mashhad and Isfahan, after the Iranian rial hit 1.45 million to the US dollar. Hyperinflation topped 50% and bread riots exposed 44% poverty rates. Soon, chants shifted from price hikes to regime overthrow. And by early January, demonstrations had spread to 187 cities across all 31 provinces. As per human rights activists' news agency, there were 34 protester deaths in the first 10 days to January 6. They rose to 45 by January 7. Iran International estimates 2,000 were killed in 48 hours, around January 8 to 10. By January 14, HRANA confirmed 2,571 deaths. Of 2,403 protesters, 147 security forces, 12 minors and 9 bystanders. These numbers are higher than the 1,500 deaths recorded in 2019 demonstrations and the over 500 deaths reported in 2022 protests after Mahsa Amini's custodial death. Rights groups say internet shutdown in Iran became a huge challenge when it came to collating the numbers of those affected by the latest strife in Iran.
In recent days, we've faced a large challenge. This is an unprecedented internet shutdown. It's not just the international sort of internet framework, it's also all domestic communication channels, including mobile telephone lines and even landlines. And that really disrupts and slows the flow of information. It really reduces our information to a minimum. Our last couple of days, we had, slow things coming in, but this morning we were able to connect via landline after some days, as many others have done as well. And that enabled us to get in touch with our network on the ground and also verify reports that we'd been, waiting to verify for some days.
While some activist sources estimate that the total death toll based on morgue diversions and eyewitness data is far higher, Iranian authorities say the number of deaths are only in hundreds and not thousands. Reports have put the number of arrests to over 18,400. So how do Iranian authorities view the protests? They see a foreign hand in them. This is what Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi told a television outlet. There were terrorist cells. They came in and they used a Daesh-style terrorist operations. They got police officers, burned them alive, they beheaded them, and they started shooting at police officers and also to the people. So as a result, for 3 days, we have in fact fighting against the terrorists and not, with the protesters. It was a completely different story. The reason I have to explain, and this is important, why they started to shoot at people. For one reason, they wanted to increase the number of deaths. Why? Because President Trump has said that if there are killings, he would intervene, and they wanted to drag him into this conflict. And that was exactly an Israeli plot. Iran's Chief Justice called for swift punishment for those detained. He said punishment, if delayed, won't have the same impact. Listen to him.
This is what they rightfully expect directly from me, you, IRGC, and the police. To number one, these individuals who have beheaded people or burned people in the streets, we must act quickly if we want to do anything. Even if we do the exact same thing, but in a couple of months, it will not have the same impact. If we do the same thing in 2 or 3 months, it will not be as effective. Also, on tackling financial corruption, that's also something we can do to help people feel better.
Now let's see the signaling from US President Donald Trump. Trump seized on the unrest and posted this on 13th January. Iranian patriots, keep protesting. Take over your institutions. Help is on its way. He warned of very strong action if executions of the arrested and sentenced protesters proceeded. He briefed aides on military options and referenced 2025 US strikes on Iranian nuclear sites that set back Iran's nuclear program. Earlier, he posted on Truth Social that countries doing business with Iran would face a 25% tariff on all transactions with the United States with immediate effect. US also evacuated non-essential personnel from the Al Udeid air base in Qatar in what appeared to be a precautionary move in the event of military hostilities with Iran. This airbase is the most critical US military installation in West Asia, as it is its biggest air operation hub in the region. Iran had targeted the same base with ballistic missiles in June 2025 when it retaliated to US strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. And then Iran closed its airspace for most flights. But just when it looked an escalation was near, one could infer from public statements that there was a dialing down of tensions. Iran reopened its airspace after a closure of nearly 5 hours that disrupted flights across the region. And US troops were allowed to return to the airbase in Qatar. On January 14th, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi denied on record any plan to carry out hangings or executions of the arrested protesters. The same day, Trump told reporters that killings and executions had stopped. But he still did not rule out action in Iran.
We have been informed by very important sources on the other side, and they've said the killing has stopped and the executions won't take place. There was supposed to be a lot of executions today, and that the executions won't take place. And we're going to find out. I mean, I'll find out after this. You'll find out. But we've been told on good authority, and I hope it's true. Who knows, right? Who knows?
We've
Crazy
seen the body
world.
bags, so how do you trust
No,
them?
you've seen that over the last few days, and they said people were shooting at them with guns, and they were shooting back, and it's one of those things. But they told me that there'll be no executions, and so I hope that's true.
Does this mean military action is now off the table against Iran?
We're going to watch and see what the process is, but we were given a very good statement by people that are aware of what's going on.
But the White House kept up the pressure on Iran. It said all options are on Trump's table.
What I will say with respect to Iran is that the president and his team have communicated to the Iranian regime that if the killing continues, there will be grave consequences. And the president received a message, as he revealed to all of you and the whole world yesterday, that the killing and the executions will stop. And the president understands today that 800 executions that were scheduled and supposed to take place yesterday were halted. And so the president and his team are closely monitoring this situation, and all options remain on the table for the president.
US-Iran acrimony was also visible at an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council called to discuss the protests in Iran.
I would like to address the allegation put forward by the regime that these inspired protests are somehow a foreign plot to give a precursor to military action. Everyone in the world needs to know that the regime is weaker than ever before and therefore is putting forward this lie because of the power of the Iranian people in the streets. They are afraid. They're afraid of their own people. Iran says it's ready for dialogue, but its actions say otherwise. This is a regime that rules through oppression, through violence, and through intimidation, and has destabilized the Middle East for decades. Well, enough is enough. We all have a responsibility to support the Iranian people and to put an end to the regime's neglect and oppression of the Iranian nation. Colleagues, let me be clear. President Trump is a man of action, not endless talk like we see at the United Nations. He has made it clear all options are on the table to stop the slaughter. And no one should know that better than the leadership of the Iranian regime.
Provided by ASG, Iran seeks neither escalation nor confrontation. However, any act of aggression, direct or indirect, will be met with a decisive, proportionate, and lawful response under Article 51 of the Charter. This is not a threat. It is a statement of legal reality. Responsibility for all consequences will rest solely with those who initiate such unlawful acts.
Reza Pahlavi is the son of the late Shah of Iran who was ousted from power. He now lives in exile in the US. He has called for regime change in Iran and positioned himself as a transitional leader and unifying force for Iranians.
This regime must go. The only solution for Iran's liberation and for peace is for this regime to be no longer there. This is an opportunity in front of us. So we are doing what we can as Iranians fighting this brutal regime. It is time for the international community to finally decide whether this time they're going to be with the people and help them overthrow this regime.
But Trump is reluctant to lend his full support to Pahlavi. Trump says he is uncertain about the support Pahlavi can muster within Iran to eventually take over. Without Trump's explicit backing, Reza Pahlavi may not be the future of Iran anytime soon. And how is India looking at the developments? India's Ministry of External Affairs issued its first advisory on the 5th of January. It urged Indians to avoid non-essential travel to Iran. On 14th January, India cautioned its nationals again. It asked Indians in Iran to avoid areas of protester demonstrations, remain in contact with the Indian embassy, keep travel and immigration documents readily available, register with the embassy if not already done, and monitor local developments and embassy updates. Now here's what experts think could be the way forward for Iran. There are 4 possible scenarios, theoretically speaking. 1. The security forces clear the streets like in the past protests. Regime stays in power, but people stay angry over poverty and sanctions, and protests go underground. 2. President of Iran Pezeshkian tries minor fixes like lower prices or looser dress rules, but the real power brokers block real change. 3. Talks take place on a new government. Leaders agree to discuss a new constitution, but this needs strong opposition unity that does not exist and also international support. And 4. Military conflict breaks out if killings were to restart. US strikes Iran and Iran attacks US bases and ships, leading to uncertainty in West Asia. Trump is watching closely, and Gulf countries are particularly worried about the region's security. So to sum it up, as Iran's protests subside, the coming weeks could reveal if the underlying tensions could come to the fore again, or if there is some sort of a resolution in sight. Ethiopia is a landlocked country located in the Horn of Africa in East Africa. It is bordered by Eritrea, Djibouti, Somalia, Kenya, South Sudan, and Sudan. Its capital, Addis Ababa, is also the political capital of Africa, hosting the African Union. Ethiopia's geography is strikingly diverse. It has high mountain plateaus, deep rift valleys, fertile lowlands, and volcanic landscapes. With a population of around 130 million people, Ethiopia is the second most populous country in Africa. Its economy is one of the fastest growing in the region, driven mainly by agriculture, services, and state-led infrastructure projects. But the country is facing deep economic pressures and political tensions. And there are also the ambitious dreams of becoming a regional power. And it is these ambitions that explain why Ethiopia has now begun construction of what it calls Africa's biggest airport. In January 2026, construction officially began on the Bishoftu International Airport, located about 40 kilometers southeast of Addis Ababa. When completed, this airport is expected to handle up to 110 million passengers every year, making it the largest airport on the continent by capacity. For comparison, Cairo International Airport is currently Africa's busiest and handles a fraction of that number. Right now, Ethiopia's main international gateway is Addis Ababa Bole International Airport. But Bole is rapidly reaching its limits. The Bishoftu Airport is not just bigger, it is also smarter in its location. It sits at an altitude of 1,910 meters, nearly 400 meters lower than the Bole Airport. That difference matters. At lower altitudes, aircraft can take off with more fuel and cargo. This removes what airline officials call a technical handicap that has limited long-haul flights from Addis Ababa. With Bishoftu, Ethiopian Airlines can operate more profitable direct routes to destinations like North America without reducing payload. The project is massive. It is expected to cost $12.5 billion, with the first phase scheduled to be completed by 2030. The airport will eventually have 4 runways, space to park 270 aircraft, and an initial capacity of 60 million passengers, which will later scale up to 110 million. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has described the airport as the largest aviation infrastructure project in Africa's history.
Ethiopian Airlines never had a journey without challenges, and never will Ethiopia have a journey without challenges. It is imperative to understand very well the context of the paths we take and our enemies take, so that Ethiopia could become a country that stands up to challenges and overcomes them.
The project is being led by Ethiopian Airlines, Africa's largest carrier. The state-owned airline has expanded aggressively in recent years, adding new routes. Ethiopian Airlines will fund about 30% of the airport's cost, while the rest will come from international lenders. So far, about $6 billion has already been secured.
We have submitted the feasibility study of the project to these potential financiers, and many of them have expressed interest to participate, and they have started their due diligence. So far, about $6 billion have been pledged, but we expect that it will increase.
Financing interest has come from across the world, from the African Development Bank to lenders in West Asia, China, Europe, and the United States.
Various financiers from Middle East, China, Europe, and the US have been involved. So we'll put all these as a pool and access it from there. What I want to emphasize on this is that Ethiopian Airlines invested 610 million US dollars on this initial construction. The airline will avail this from its coffers within 1 year.
ይሄንን በራሱ አቅም ነው በመጪው አንድ ዓመት ውስጥ
For Ethiopia, the airport is not just about travel. The aim is to turn Ethiopia into a major global transit hub, rivaling places like Dubai and London Heathrow, and redirecting travel flows through East Africa instead of West Asia or Europe. But these ambitions exist alongside serious challenges. Ethiopia is landlocked, and that remains one of its biggest economic constraints. More than 95% of Ethiopia's trade passes through the Djibouti's port, costing the country up to $2 billion every year in port fees and logistics. This dependence is why Ethiopia is desperate for access to the Red Sea. In January 2024, Ethiopia signed a controversial agreement with Somaliland, a self-declared state that Somalia considers part of its territory. The deal would give Ethiopia a 50-year lease on a stretch of coastline near the port of Berbera, potentially allowing a naval base and commercial access to the sea. But the agreement triggered a diplomatic storm. Somalia declared it illegal and ratified international opposition. Regional powers like Egypt and Turkey were drawn into the dispute, each with strategic interests in the Red Sea, which is one of the world's most important maritime corridors. This broader geopolitical struggle explains why Ethiopia is investing so heavily in infrastructure. The Bishoftu Airport joins another mega project of Ethiopia, and that is the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, or GERD. In September 2025, Ethiopia inaugurated the continent's largest hydroelectric project on the Blue Nile. The dam is enormous. It is 170 meters tall, that's nearly 2 kilometers long, and designed to generate 5,150 megawatts of electricity. That's more than double Ethiopia's current power capacity. Yet nearly 45% of Ethiopians still lack access to electricity, and frequent blackouts disrupt daily life and business. For Ethiopia, GERD is a symbol of national pride and economic transformation. It promises industrial growth, regional power exports, and energy security. But for Egypt, which depends on the Nile for 97% of its water, the dam is seen as an existential threat. Egyptian leaders argue that any reduction in Nile flow could destabilize their country socially and economically. Although engineers say the dam does not consume water and only regulates its flow, the issue remains deeply political. Analysts say GERD is as much about power and national security as it is about water. Like the dam, the Bishoftu Airport is presented as a leap into the future, but not everyone is convinced. Farmers displaced by the airport project have raised concerns about resettlement, housing, and jobs.
With the current high cost of living, the youth is the one in trouble. They have given our parents houses, but the youth got nothing. Renting a house is very expensive. Finding a job is also difficult because some are educated and some are not. So the future of the youth is at stake.
Now, whether these mega projects will deliver inclusive growth or deepen existing tensions remains an open question. But one thing is for sure, Ethiopia is positioning itself to become the gateway of Africa. That's all in this edition of Connecting the Dots. We'll see you next week with more raging issues. Until then, it's a goodbye from all of us in the Delhi newsroom. This is Munmun Bhattacharya signing off. Take care and stay safe.